Hey guys, it's Christian from Lost in Discovery and welcome back to my One Piece journey. Today we will be talking about the Long Ring Longland arc, which is highly controversial, I have found out in the fandom, so I have a lot to say about it today. Now I'm sorry I'm quite late getting this out to you guys. I had the mother of all flus this week, which I'm still getting over, so I apologize if I sound a little congested. I'm at the point where I can get through a few sentences without coughing, so I thought I better get this out before I am too far along past this arc where I can't really give proper reactions and thoughts on it. So I actually read this arc a few weeks ago and I'm about 30 chapters into Water 7, I would say so far, the Water 7 arc, and it is taking One Piece to a whole new level for me. But let's go back and talk about the Long Ring Longland arc. It really stands out from everything else I've read so far in One Piece. And I actually really welcomed the change of pace, the sort of more comedic tone, and a moment to kind of take a breath with the crew after these epic sagas of Alabasta and Skypiea. It was nice to just have something a little bit more contained. But having said that, it wasn't without its world building. The sort of beginning and end points were extremely impactful in terms of what was happening in the greater world and really what was happening to our characters. I found the way this arc started to be really serene and really beautiful. We kind of had that moment where they're coming down from Skypiea, they're able to just sit down, reminisce, kind of take in what they've done, and it almost feels like there hasn't really been a moment to do that since Alabasta. So I found that really nice, just seeing the crew being able to chat a little bit about where everyone is at. We got some clues about how some of the world is working. We saw that Bellamy was actually working for Doflamingo, who shows up and beats the crap out of him, which was very satisfying. And you know, Oda keeps teasing Doflamingo quite a lot, and I have a bad feeling about this guy, and I just feel like, especially with the powers that he seems to have where he can control other people, this is going to lead to some heart-wrenching scenes with the Strawhats. That's my prediction with him so far. But soon after, Oda kind of sets up the thread with Admiral Aokiji. Aokiji. I'm sorry, I'm gonna say it wrong, especially my brain is dead at the moment. That's the best we'll get out of me today. But we kind of get introduced to the admirals and how Aokiji is looking for the Strawhats, in particular Nico Robin, and he has this line referring to Luffy's grandfather, and I was just like, the story of Luffy's family seems to be a very well known and grand tale that somehow Luffy is not privy to, / the reader, and I feel like this mystery is going to continue for quite some time before we piece together what was really happening with Luffy's family and the will of D and all of that. So we discover our next island, Long Ring Longland. I can't actually remember what the actual title of the island was, but I love the design. I love how it's a ring and the tide goes in and out, so they have to jump to the next one every 3 years. I love this moment between Luffy and Robin, how Robin wasn't getting excited enough about finding a new island, and Luffy was demonstrating her how to be excited, and she's like, okay, I'll try for next time. I just find Robin is just kind of watching the crew and is very endeared by them, and just especially with Luffy, she's like, yeah, whatever you want, man, I'll do my best. To be honest, it kind of threw me how quickly we were introduced to how this world works, and just how silly it was. How, oh, that's not a dash and that's a dash, and it just how the words were longer, the trees longer, the guy's been on stilts for 10 years. It was just wacky One Piece at its very most memeable, I suppose. Regardless, we're kind of introduced to the concept of this world, a character there, and a small problem which Luffy seems to be very invested in. As soon as they meet Sherry, the adorable horse / giraffe thing, I swear, as soon as there's a cute animal, I'm like Luffy, I'm like, yeah, what's this animal's story? We need to help it reach its long lost owner. This is the most important thing in the world right now. Then arrive the mad lads and lasses of this arc, the Foxy Pirates, who just shoot the bloody horse straight in the face and say, you know what, we're doing a Davy Back fight, and we're going to take some of your crew members if you lose. And Luffy is so emotionally affected by this moment. He says, of course I'm going to fight you. This crew, the Foxy Pirates, are just a bunch of idiots. I'm pretty sure that's the best way I can sum them up. And I think they had the perfect flavor of One Piece villain for this arc. Foxy himself I found just to be a bit of a joke, up until we saw the power of his devil fruit, the slow fruit, which is incredibly overpowered and led to some incredibly interesting fights. But he seems to have a very fragile ego, we can put it that way, and I loved how he kind of crouched in that position of being hurt every time Luffy insulted him, and how Oda turned that gag into something that Luffy could use in a fight where there was all those duplicates of him, and once he insulted him, he saw the one that went down into that position. So Oda surprises you all the time in One Piece, and I find I'm always surprised how he takes the silliness and the humor and actually builds it into the narrative and builds it into even sometimes the world building to create something completely unique from everything else I've read. Now, in talking to some of you in the live streams that we do after every saga, people were telling me that this arc's a bit controversial. A lot of people rate it as the worst arc in One Piece, and especially in the anime it's worse. And I've actually found myself watching the anime more these days because the animation's kind of cleaned up a bit. It feels a bit easier to watch in my modern anime eyes. So I've been enjoying watching it a lot more. But I saw that in the anime they were adding all these extra rounds and they were just dragging things out. And seeing that anime version, I can totally see why this would have dragged for a lot of people. But in the manga, I found it to be the perfect length, the perfect amount of rounds. And you know what? For me, I'm a sucker for this kind of stuff, this kind of round-based tournament arc. I know it's a bit basic, but I'm not gonna lie, Goblet of Fire, even the movie, big fan. So yeah, these kind of things, I'm into it. And it was interesting to see the crew's reaction to the Davy Back fight, who was actually into it and who was extremely worried. It was actually Zoro and Robin who seemed to be smirking, knowing that Luffy accepted. Like, yeah man, let's have some fun. I think they're so secure in themselves and their abilities that they were just up for this, and I love to see it. Even though it was quite silly and it was just kind of like a tournament battle arc, I found it to explore the nature of the Strawhats in a quite interesting way. It was funny to see how, you know, like I said with Zoro and Robin, they're so secure in themselves, they seem unfazed by this whole thing. But then you have somebody like Usopp, who was so keen to prove himself as a pirate and a real man, and Captain Usopp, you know, and he took this extremely seriously, more than anybody else in the crew. And he was the one who probably got the most creative, using the impact dials in the race and the boats, and push himself as far as he could to make sure they didn't lose any of the crew members. And when they do end up losing Chopper, he beats himself into the ground, and a lot of them are like kind of comedic lines or just self-depreciating humor, but it's a really keen insight, and especially as we go into Water 7, and I've read that part that you're probably thinking of, it really gives you that sense of insecurity that Usopp is dealing with, and how seriously he does take being part of the Straw Hat crew. And this led to one of the most impactful scenes in the series for me so far, is when they did lose Chopper, and Zoro is just not having his crying emotional reaction. And he tells him like, dude, shut up, just be a man. If these are your choices, you're in the pirates now, you're a pirate now, you gotta suck it up and deal with it. Like, this is what's happening, so stop blubbering and begging. And I was taken aback, because Chopper is just the most precious little thing in the world, and every time he cries, I'm like, oh no, it's gonna be okay, Chopper. And I never expected one of the Straw Hats to kind of lay down the law with Chopper like that. But you know what, sometimes you need a friend like that. Sometimes you need someone to be like, come on, like, have some inner strength, push through a bit, it's gonna be alright, and you have the capabilities to take care of it yourself as well. Okay, you don't need to say, I only joined because of you, Luffy, and all of this. And it just impressed me, and it really did surprise me that the story went there, especially an arc where people just say, oh yeah, it's a bit silly and dumb, whatever. You could maybe even skip it. I found it to be a very key moment for Zoro, to be honest. And obviously for Chopper too. Speaking of Zoro, it was just so bloody frustrating to watch him and Sanji just be at each other's throats, even though it was quite funny. It was frustrating to see them have that be the crux of what they're caring about when there are crew members at stake. Even though it was meant to be funny, I just cared too much about if we're going to lose a crew member that would have to get back in the next arc or whatever. It was very frustrating to see, apologies for the background noise, it was just frustrating to see them not be able to prioritize what really mattered in that moment, and I feel like it finally did click for them towards the end. But that whole sequence of like pretty much the footy match, that was quite frustrating to read, but it was great when Nami could finally screw over the ref and these annoying Foxy bloody pirates and get them the win for that one. And yes, it's finally time to talk about it. There's no way to avoid it any longer. Afro Luffy. Afro Luffy is a thing that has been published in One Piece for many years, and it happened. That's a thing that happened, and it was glorious. Is about all I can say. A weird choice, but you know what? Oda committed to the bit, and I wrote down what Usopp said because I just thought this is so wacky and silly and stupid. I just have to write this down. Usopp says, "This hairstyle summons a man's wild instincts. It has been asked, do the champions wear afros? Or do afros wear champions? Even modern science cannot solve this riddle. This hairdo will make your punches stronger." And you know what? In that moment, I believed him. And you know what? This fight really, really surprised me. I feel like even though Foxy was a bloody idiot, he has a very, very interesting devil fruit, which he has seemed to have mastered, because it seems like him and his pirates do this Davy Back fight and just screw over everybody because they have such an OP leader. And I found the fight with the ship and using mirrors and the slow fruit and how, you know, the impact of his hits and punches would happen seconds later. It was a very tense and really entertaining fight to watch, actually. And it kind of started draining the humor out of this arc and made it more serious, because it's starting to dawn on Luffy that it's not going to be that easy, and if he loses, he's going to lose a whole lot more than his pride. He's going to lose some of the people he loves. Once this dawns on Luffy, he just goes into like overpowered, angry Luffy mode, and it was brilliant to see, and brilliant to see him again use his smarts, using the mirrors with the slow fruit to kind of turn the tables on Foxy. And it just leads to that triumphant line from Luffy where he says, "I won't lose anybody in my crew, even if it kills me." And I feel like that just sums him up perfectly. Throughout every chapter of One Piece, the more I read, the more and more I fall in love with Luffy as a character. Just what he represents in terms of friendship and morals, and just pushing for what you believe is right. Pushing for what you believe is right? That doesn't sound right. Again, guys, I'm getting over the flu. I don't know. Luffy's awesome. Luffy's freaking awesome, man. And the day is won. We kick out the Foxy Pirates. We save the day at Long Ring Longland. And I thought to myself, you know what, that was a fun arc. We got some interesting looks into some characters, how they would react in certain situations when they're pushed and when they're put to the test and when they're put in uncomfortable places. Cool, let's go on to Water 7. But before that, out of absolutely nowhere, Admiral Aokiji shows up, asleep, standing up. I don't know, he's a bit weird, he's a bit strange. He asks Nami out. The guy's all over the place, but the tone shift was significant, and it made me kind of sit up and be like, okay, I need to pay attention here. This is getting serious. Basically, he's out to see if Robin is indeed part of the Straw Hat crew, and every single member of this crew squares up to fight him, and I loved this moment. You know, Robin's still very new. Robin has barely spoken to these guys, to be honest, or barely really gotten to know them to a significant degree, and vice versa. But she's in the crew, and the second she was threatened, they all bloody squared up for it, and I love to see that. He turns like half the bloody sea into ice. He freaking takes on all the boys, almost kills Robin. Like, there was barely anything in it. Luffy only just saved her. Like, that was gonna be it for her. And he basically just shows you that we are in very early days with One Piece. There are forces in this world so far beyond what our little crew is capable of, and I love to be reminded of that. Once it feels like Luffy can beat anyone, it was great to see someone who so nonchalantly shows up and just shatters their entire perception of the world and what is capable out there. And we're kind of just left off with this eerie moment where he's referring to Luffy's grandfather, saying he has no self-control, but he spares him because of him taking care of Crocodile. And he says, forget about Smoker's silly message as well. So he drops all these hints. He just says, you know what? I could kill all of you right now, but I'm like kind of too tired. I'm just going to ride my bicycle over the ocean real quick, and I'll see you in a later arc, is basically what I gathered from that. Just such a punch in the gut after a kind of fun, lighthearted arc that left me wanting more and just propelled me into Water 7 where I am now. And it's only improved since. So yeah guys, those are my thoughts on the Long-Ring Longland arc of One Piece, a short arc that had humor, insights into characters, and a little bit of world building with a few big names showing up at the beginning and end, and serving as a nice breather between Skypiea and the more intense Water 7. Let me know what you thought of this arc, and if I've missed anything. As I said, it's been a couple weeks since I read it, but I just looked at my notes and this is what I've come up with my flu brain dead brain. I'll see you guys back when I finish the Water 7 arc, which I'm sure the video is going to be a billion hours long and we'll have lots and lots to talk about, because so far this arc it's bloody crazy. So hope you're well, see you soon, and thanks again guys for being so supportive on my One Piece journey. Bye.